significantly degrade the quality of the resource, which is really the shoreline, the barrier dune, and that offshore profile. I think you have to, my opinion, and this is certainly not an area of expertise of mine, my opinion is to assess the access need that needs to be met, or that could be met by this property, and then consider ways that you would satisfy that need. But I do think, you know, some of the more tangible questions become number of vehicles, the type of surface material. Obviously, you wouldn't want recycled concrete aggregate here, or maybe even blacktop as a paving material. Quartz gravel, crushed shells would be much more indigenous.
But you're conceding the access. You're conceding the need for an access. It's just how do we provide that access?
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it a concession. This is identified in the LWRP as a potential access point in the future. And, you know, there are areas like that all over town, and how the town grows into those needs is going to be a constantly evolving question.
So what would be the next step? Because I know you mentioned something about DEC and wetlands and things of that nature. Is a next step that, and maybe Larry would want to comment, that we have to apply, if the town is to do this, apply for certain permits?
I don't know if that's the next step yet. I think the next step is decide physically what you want to be there. Again, the size and the configuration of the clearing, how big of a cleared area do you want, how close do you want that down to the water, how wide of a pedestrian access, if you're going to have the parking lot up by East, you know, farther away by East Lake, how wide do you want that
And
access?
if we're to do that, do we do that in coordination with does planning do that, or does recreation do that, or?
You have to make certain decisions, but we can certainly draw a plan for you.
Okay.
We would work with the town.
Thank you. Great. Thanks very much.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Thanks.
Larry, did you want to make some comments? Larry Penny?
Institutional knowledge, this is Larry Penny, Natural Resources. Institutional knowledge is fast leaving us, but I enjoyed Brian's presentation. This was actually opened in 83, 84, when I became Natural Resource Director. I started as an environmental planner in the planning department. And then it was allowed to, first of all, the problem was that it didn't have a New York State DEC wetland permit when it was open. And consequently, we would have had to get the wetland permit to actually make it legal. That was not a problem in those days. You could get the wetland permit, and I've gotten 50 or 60 since then for the town. But the town board was not that interested at the time in pursuing it. It was actually opened by the highway superintendent, Amato DeSuno at the time. I made a little study of, and I was on the waterfront. In fact, I was the head of the local waterfront plan for a while until they hired Ramesh Das as the consultant. And I was on the committee for a long time, and I was one of those people that poured over what the access is. I also did a study for the Department of State on accesses throughout the entire town, $34,000 grant, and published that. And that was done in the mid-90s. And this access came up in that study and so forth. And that right now we have this local water, we have a watershed, Lake Montauk watershed study going on, which will ultimately be a plan for Lake Montauk if we do it correctly, and I hope we do it correctly. And I'm not so sure we want to wait till next year before we do something here on this particular access. But we are looking at all the accesses, and we have, years ago, we have studied all the culverts coming into Lake Montauk, made maps of them. You have a, town board has tons of maps that we produced with the culverts and the flows from the culverts. Brian said there was a culvert. Yeah, it's true. There was a culvert there with a clean out and so forth. There are some things I would like to see. First of all, I sort of studied the accesses in other harbors. We have 9 active accesses and 3 launching ramps in 3 Mile Harbor. We have 3 launching ramps in Accabonac Harbor and 7 active open public accesses. In Lake Montauk, we have 6 open public accesses and 2 launching ramps. The one essentially is not is on the going fishing, and it can be used by the town. The other one is
That's a marina that has a deal with us that basically
Right.
allows us to use that.
right, and a long-standing one on which has been improved considerably on Westlake Drive. By the way, I'm going to tell you, this is the first time I've been invited to a brown bag in 4.5 years, so I feel
Welcome, I'm glad you wore your special shirt.
I've never been asked.
Welcome, Larry Manning.
Yeah, okay. But so it's a kind of interesting thing for me to be here, as it were, you know, because I do have a lot of knowledge about the town and these accesses. The this is the and I made it, I gave you an access map along with my memorandum of all the accesses around Lake Montauk. Brian is on the Watershed Management Committee and plays a part in that study as well. I think that what's happened over time is we've let lots of these things become taken over passively by private interests, maybe without any malfeasance involved, but they just kind of grew back, these accesses, you know. This access goes back to 1942, like the one down, we didn't get Oyster Pond until around 1990 and so forth, but
Oh, wait, I thought you said it was opened in
Big Reed Pond, Little Reed Pond.
1983. What did you say?
Yes, but it was, the access goes back to 1942. It goes back
So
to
the actual
military
physical access,
occupation
the 100-foot
of,
wide.
goes back to the military occupation. A lot of that drainage was put in by the military because Montauk was a very important military base, and the lake was dredged by the Army Corps, and it was a federal channel, still dredged by the Army Corps. And a lot of it goes back to that time when we got from the Montauk Beach Company, we got a bunch of accesses around Lake Montauk deeded to the town as part of this kind of militarization setup of Montauk. The thing is, this is the largest, this is the, as Brian pointed out in his memo, this is the widest one in all of Montauk around the lake. Lake Montauk is the most important tributary in the Peconic Estuary. It's the largest tributary and has the richest, finfish, shellfish, and underwater aquatic vegetation complement of any of them. So it's really a special place, but it also is subject to pollution and so forth. One of the things I would like to see here, in addition to opening it up, is controlling the water that's coming out of the parkland, going under the road. By the way, that's a county road. East Lake Drive is a county road. Coming under the East Lake Drive and going in.
East Lake Drive is a county
road, yes, like Westlake Drive, county road. Going under the East Lake Drive and going into the lake. And we've been able to successfully handle 4 of these inputs so far in the last 5 years.
Don't you have a new catch base going in on East Lake?
Right. A man named Bond gave us the property and gave us the underwater land to go with the property, and we have another one of those catchment.
What are you retaining?
Right, and in fact, it's just about finished. It's got water in it. Interestingly enough, they're all working. They're all working, but we have to kind of make them work better. But right now, no water is flowing from any of them into the lake. They're catching the water, big rain, and then they start going over, with the exception of 1 or 2. So I'd like to design something here like the ones we have around the lake to catch that water before it goes into the lake and treat it, passively, naturally, before it goes into the lake. But that can be done with opening. I agree with Brian that this probably isn't a good spot for a